Good evening, all. Welcome to episode 25, part 2 this week with a very special guest. We've been trying to obviously get together with Thomas for a little while now, and he has eventually got some space in his schedule in between all of the updates for his game. So it's an honour to get Thomas on the show this week, and if you would take it away and let people know a little bit about yourself there, Thomas, and obviously the game that you've gloriously created by yourself.
So I'm Tomas Sala. I created the Falconeer. I think that's the shortest thing, and I make games. That's about it. Well, there's more, but
yeah. Awesome stuff. And what kind of obviously the game that you've created is very unique in itself, but what kind of games do you have as favorites yourself, something that might potentially have inspired kind of what you've created?
Well, I've just spent 2 days installing Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. I haven't gotten. I'm going to play it after this. After we're done here. So looking forward to that. So I do like flight games, and the Falconeer I started making because I wanted to make something that sort of went back to the games I played as a kid, which were a lot of these old school flying games, so Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe, Aces of the Pacific, even a TIE Fighter or whatever came before. I just remember TIE Fighter, actually. Love TIE Fighter. So all these sort of flying games, and especially ones that had great environments to explore. And Crimson Skies, of course, is a slightly later one. So those are the games I thought, that's something you love, and that's something that has, the Dutch Vingerspitzengefühl, or German, whatever, where you have a gameplay feeling, and that is an easier thing to develop by yourself. Because if you do like a strategy game, which I tried before, it's fucking hard. And it's very hard to say, this is fun when it doesn't have all the elements in place. So you try to make a strategy game. I've made the AI, it's sort of, and the controls good. Now I need to make a map that's fun, and now I need to make units that are fun, and then I need to add a story or a campaign that's fun. All these elements you only know if they're fun once they're all in place. If you do a flying game and the flying sucks, you'll know the minute it's not right. So hence I love flying games. But for myself, I play lots of. I've got kids now, so I play less. But I like RPG games. I'm a huge Skyrim fan. Did lots of Skyrim modding in the past. Lots of Skyrim modding. I love RPGs. Was actually excited for the Cyberpunk. Still excited a bit. Waiting to play it. What else? I like Homeworld. I don't know. Anybody remember all the Relic strategy games? I'm a huge fan of. So it's mix.
A mixture.
Strategy, RPG, RTS, flying games, space games.
Space games as well. Flying space games.
Flying space, you play a little bit of Elite Dangerous with that fucker. I've stopped now because I'm waiting for the update, like everybody. What's going on, guys? Oh, you make something new. I'll wait for that. I got my ship waiting for me when they're done. So,
right.
Gonna get into Star Citizen probably at some point.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a big game as well, Star Citizen. A lot to do on that, but that's a very good game.
Hopefully.
If it lives up to expectations.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see. But it's looking quite special, actually.
Awesome stuff. And before we get into the meats and potatoes of the podcast, we will introduce our other 2 panel members for this week. First of all, Forza Erwin. How are you doing today, brother?
Good evening. Goedenavond, everybody. Finally to see another Dutch guy on the show. I'm not the only one. So good to have Thomas on the show. Thank you for your busy schedule and taking you away from your family to talk about gaming and your beautiful game that you created. So thanks for joining the show. I'm doing good, man. Very busy week with work, but looking forward to the weekend. It's going to be promising with the weather outside. Do some gaming as well. Spending time with the family. So doing well, Drew. Thank you.
Awesome stuff. And secondly, our other panel member today, again, another awesome interviewer from four guys with quarters. It's Italian Clownz. How are you doing today, brother?
Hey, what's up, man? Thanks for having me on this show. And Tomas, it's really great to meet you, man. I really look up to your work. And something about the Falconeer I really admire is the art style. I think it's a very artistic game, and it's beautifully done. So thank you for creating that experience for us all.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. One of the first questions I want to get into for you, Thomas, this week, at the moment, is primarily your inspiration behind the game itself. I know, obviously, you're a huge fan of like you say, flying games and simulators and shooters, etc. One of the first things that stuck out to me was kind of like a flight sim meets Panzer Dragoon, but with falcons. Is that kind of how hard was because I would imagine trying to get falcon flying kind of mechanics is not easy, or bird flying mechanics.
I think easier than you might think, actually. My camera's going. The bird itself, just watching lots of YouTube videos of birds flying, which is very interesting because you then recognize where people are animating birds wrongly. So there's interesting birds flap forward where you think they would actually push back, but they're actually going. Anyway, the flapping itself is easy, and then I just initially started with a fairly straight up Crimson Skies type control system.
Yeah.
And added birds, and that worked okay. That it's I think that's what they did for Lair back in the day on PlayStation, where they reskinned, I think it was Rogue Squadron to do that.
Yeah.
And it felt fairly mechanical. And then I started adding, doing the rolling and the diving and stuff, and that really turned it into something a lot more organic than a regular flying game, because you can do flips and stuff by just pushing the stick. So that wasn't that hard actually. To the I think the Panzer Dragoon. I haven't played Panzer Dragoon because I've always been a PC gamer. We didn't have a Sega. I think Panzer Dragoon is. We had an Amiga, and so I don't know. That's before that actually. But I always admire the fact that it looks different. If you look at the Panzer Dragoon visuals, because I did see it when it came out, the dragons looks different from what you think dragons are, and that's always with me as hugely inspirational. So like, it doesn't have to be like Smaug from Lord of the Rings. It can be whatever you want. So I did like that a lot.
Awesome stuff. So that was kind of the like you mentioned there, Crimson Skies was one of the kind of basis for the game itself. How difficult was it then to really create something that was unique? Because Falconeer is a very unique game, and like I say, although it's similar in aspects to those games, it was when you actually sit down and play it, it's an entirely different experience.
It's I think part of that is the storytelling and the art, and as it is a very personal game. So I think that I get a lot of flack for that, where people go in expecting a fairly straight action adventure with some fantasy storyline, and it's a fairly artsy, philosophical type of a game with lots of personal narrative sort of hidden, and emotional stuff and all that nonsense really. So that gives it a unique air, and I do also trend whatever I make. I think one of the things, if you're by yourself, and I want to be by myself and I don't want to work in the studio, you have to, if you want to then be seen, as it were, by the press or gamers, you got to make something different, and you got to make something unique. And I think that's lots of indie games where, if you go on Twitter, they're trying to emulate what they love. But that usually already exists. So the games I love.
You live in Groningen, Thomas, with the earthquakes.
Sort it out of there. So I think I tried to just do something differently. So whenever something pops in, I'll go, let me do it differently. And that sometimes works, and sometimes it radically doesn't work. But I that's an instinct where I go, okay, a first demo I made was with a dragon, and then flying around a dragon, pretty cool. But it's been done before, so scrap that. What else can we fly? Well, giant fucking eagle, excellent. Turned out to be a falcon, but fine. So you just find something different. So every time you want to do something, I'll go the other way. So I'm one of those types. So the same with the stories. You'd expect a regular hero narrative thread, a story arc, and I would I don't want to do that. So it's different because it's I enjoy doing things differently and doing something for the first time rather than building on what I've done or building what someone else has done. And it's not the smartest approach always, but it is kind of fun for me. It's fun to do. Let's put it like that. Which is important if you're by yourself.
Oh, most definitely, yeah, most definitely. We've had a couple of solo developers on the show. You might have seen Song of Iron before, or at least seen kind of it. And obviously Joe, he's recently he did the opposite. He started at AAA, and now he's quit that job, and he's now only an independent developer. So he's just concentrating on Song of Iron. How do you find being an independent developer then? What difficulties or things do you enjoy most about it as well? What are the strengths and the weaknesses of being a solo developer?
Well, the weakness is you have no money, and you don't know if you're ever going to get any money, and then you have to wait if there's any money, and in the end, there's not a lot of money. So there's not a lot of money. I think the guys at Valheim have a lot of money, but I personally did make it's not a even if you have. If what you see are the regular indie darlings, so the games of the month or something, I don't think those necessarily mean that the person behind that is rich or even comfortable, because it takes a lot of money to translate stuff, etc., especially if you're a publisher, and then sales aren't huge for a lot of titles nowadays because there's just so many games. So it's a luck of the draw. So that is a huge downside. There is a risk, there's where you can go online and see on Steam that the Falconeer is not super popular on Steam, so that's not a lot of money made, but it's on Game Pass, so you have luck somewhere and you have bad luck somewhere else. But it's a very uncertain career choice. So that's the negative. I think that's a lot of stress for a lot of people, and like me, I'm happy, it makes enough so that I can continue doing what I'm doing and I don't have to get a fucking job, which would be fucking hell. So not that jobs, I've done that for 20 years of my life, but it's not something I want to return to as being the person I am. So I get, so that's the negative. The best part is you can do whatever the fuck you want all day long. And there's, of course, you've got obligations to your publisher and obligations to, partners or people who helped you forward, like Microsoft. And you have to, if you want to be a launch title, you better launch on time when the console launches. So there's still deadlines, but beyond that, you can do whatever you want. I've got 3 kids, and all day today, we've got an update coming, but it's getting tested. And I did some digging in the garden with the kids. That's a freedom that's fantastic. So just the life freedom is a luxury. And then the creative freedom is, I can go and say, well, I want to do it differently. And people go, really? If that worked anywhere else, it wouldn't have existed, because it's an uncompromising game up to a fault. I think literally up to, some things it does unpopularly so, but it is hyper uncompromising, and that is very enjoyable. So I can get why Joe, when you come out of that high energy AAA environment and then suddenly you have freedom to do what you want, things become emotionally very gratifying as a human being, because you get to be an artist and express yourself and make your own choices. And, the consequences be damned, because I think that's a universal trait, is that, if it goes wrong, fuck it. At least I'm doing what I want to do. And you go head first and try to survive. So it's I'd say more positive than negative or way more positive than negative.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, go on, Erwin.
How did your career get to you to this point? What did you do in the, like you said, in the last 20-25 years? Like what kind of jobs did you do? Did you always went?
Well, we started a studio with. I did the HKU in Utrecht School of Arts, which has a media. I'm 44, so that's 25 years ago. And they were doing like websites and multimedia and all that shit. So I did that, and they had a master's in games. I finished that. Then now I have an excellent art course, by the way. But and then with some classmates and my brother, we started a studio, Little Chicken Game Company. They're still around, and I did that for 17, 18 years. And we did, but at some point trying to be a leader and all that stuff. I'm horrible. I'm the worst team leader you would ever see. Because at some point, we were doing a work for hire, meaning someone would pay us to make games. Well, do you remember the Albert Heijn dinosaur plaatjes of 3 years ago with the VR app? Well, I made that app with the team. So I think that was the last commercial assignment I ever did. So that's the stuff I did, and then at some point with that studio, we did Wrecked, which is now out on Switch and PC, I think, which is a very fun. It's got a little bit of my tech art in there. Stunt racing on skateboards, sort of skateboard meets stunt racing game. And we did Track Lab for PlayStation VR, which was a Sony exclusive. So we got to work with SEE in London 3 years ago. Nobody played it, but it was super original game. People can look it up. It's a game to make music in VR, but nobody played it. So those are the ending. So that's and so somewhere halfway. So 5, 6. So when was Skyrim? 2013. So I was doing that, and that was paying my bills and keeping my family alive. Or I didn't have a family back then. I have now, but paying the rent, so to speak. And at some point, I had a burnout, and I have ADD, and working in teams is really a chore. And I was done, and that happened around the same time, or a little bit after I discovered modding. So I spent a lot of time modding Skyrim. So if I don't know, I think it's even out on the Xbox. Yes, other modders did. So I did a mod called Moonpath to Elsewhere for Skyrim, which was quite a popular mod. I think it's got a couple of million downloads. It's that first jungle mod for Skyrim. So there's a jungle mod for Skyrim, and I did that for 6 months, and it just blew up. And people, can I do voice acting for your mod? I go, sure. Up until to the paid mod, what you call it, Revolution War incident, where Bethesda announced paid mods. And then every modder on Earth was, I can get paid for this? And I was going, I can get paid for this? Excellent. And then a lot of gamers went, no, we own mods are for the community, by the community, never be paid for. And there was lots of nasty stuff happening. I said, okay, fuck it. I'm going to make a game. I can at least get paid for it by myself. And that game was over on Scored. I never released it. It was a strategy game. It was basically shite. It looked really good, though. It's where I discovered my visual style, but it was quite dark. And, there's videos of it online, but it wasn't super fun to play. And it took me 3 years to realize that. So after I realized I was making something that wasn't really fun to play, I think I'll make something else which at least is slightly more fun to play than this. And that became the Falconeer. So that's an entire journey over quite a long time with all kinds of fun.
Did you have a speciality for yourself that you are, let's say, animations, or what is your?
I identify as a 3D artist, so I like making visual art. I've always done that, and at some point, I've always done a little bit of programming, and then I did visual scripting, like the precursors to Unreal Blueprints, which is just like Scratch or what you got. Like Roblox or a game maker, you program by dragging little boxes around, basically making a flowchart. And then about 5-6 years ago, starting coding proper, C# type coding. which I'd also done, but not any. And that hit a decent enough level where I went, oh, okay, I now have the full range of skills. So that's how that happened. Yeah.
Cool. I want to give a shout out also to Vincent, who was in the chat. He was saying, I'm going to support, or I'm going to buy the game to support you, Thomas. So that's really nice of Vincent. Yep.
Yeah, I need that.
That's one of the things I did. That was one of the first game, much like Erwin. It was one of the first games I got on launch. Among a host of other indie developer games that came out around that time as well. Really, I'm a massive independent developer fan. I love looking at smaller studio games or solo developing games, and the Falconeer is very unique. Much like Erwin was saying beforehand, the art style is very different, but it's also very similar to something that we love, which is Sea of Thieves, and the same kind of art style. But I love the kind of hashtag you've got on your bio, which is, I think it's Death of Textures or Death to Textures. So what's the story behind that then?
Well, so 15 years ago, if you're a 3D artist, there's like a period where 3D packaging introduced something called radiosity, and it's where you wouldn't just render ray traced shadows. Well, ray traced is old fashioned. It's not in gaming, but it's fairly old fashioned technology. But there was a point where everything looked like very hard shadows and stuff. And then someone came with radiosity, which is like ambient occlusion, which you turn off on your card, and it's basically the soft shadows inside shadows. You see. So it's not the hard shadows, but it's a little darkness in. And people start making gray sculpts. So you'd have your character and you wouldn't give you just show the model in gray. People still do that and lit it realistically. So it looks like it's clay or something. I've always thought that looked really cool. I always had the idea, I want to make a game like that just shows off the geometry and the lighting. And that it doesn't, normally you use textures. It's basically wrapping an image around your object. And if you sculpt something or reduce it to a normal map, it's still, stretching pixels around. And when I did Oberon Scored, I said, okay, I want to do something. Like I said before, I always need to do something different. I said, I'll do it without textures. Because shaders and shader technology went to a point that you could do graphical programming in shaders and really quickly experiment with new things. Instead of here, stick an image on there and stick a normal map or a bump map or that, and look, it's shiny and it's got texture or it's got depth to it, and that is it is simply if you have a mountain, it's saying, well, instead of putting a picture of a mountain, say, well, the top of the mountain is white, so halfway here I'll blur it to brown, and then at the bottom it's red. So you have a color of a mountain. You say, well, okay, then I'm going to wave it a little bit so it looks like snow, just by using sine waves or mathematics. And then you can have if you have that little program that does that, it's called a shader, the little code that says, well, anything above this is white, like a height map, and things are displaced in a certain way. You can take any object and put it in your game. It will always look that way. So if you stick them together, two mountains together, you get an interesting shape. It's colored and lit the same way. I thought that was super interesting. And I spent a good 3 years just experimenting with that, what you can do in that Oberon Scarp game. And I loved it. And it forced me to do things differently. So it becomes like a little bit of a, it's like a high, like a drug. It's like, oh, I've done it differently. It's like so satisfying. Someone will have... will make something and then go, I've made it as well, but it's just these lines of code, and the model I make, suddenly boom, there's snow on top of it. You go, it's fun, and I even use it in the user interface, and everything is now completely textureless, and I'm pretty rigid with it, that I don't fake it. So there's nowhere where I'll secretly use texture because it's quicker or faster on the GPU. But if you force yourself to do it, you can go to interesting places. It forces you to make different art that looks slightly off, and that's a place I think that, like I said before, if you're developing something by yourself, you better make sure it looks different, and nobody can copy what you're doing. I don't think there's lots of people that are doing styles or simply, but nobody's being as crazy as saying I'm not going to use any textures. So say what you will, you probably won't find a game like the Falconeer anytime soon, which is fun. Like it or not, it is in that sense fairly unique.
Yeah, very, very unique, very unique. There's one the character in the game that gives you all of the missions sounds very, very, very familiar. He probably isn't the same guy, but he sounds very much like the guy from Call of Duty.
Which one? Which chapter?
Let's have a look.
Is it the first one?
Yeah, I think so. Is it? Let's have a look. Cool.
With the tutorials? Now
yes.
you say it. Now I think
he hands out all the missions. Yeah, he sounds like Fisher from Call of Duty.
Yeah. Is that the dude with the cigar?
Yes.
I have a little statue of him.
It's not the same guy, I'm pretty sure, because I'm not that rich. So but it is actually some of the voice acting, and it's a little bit camp. So if you're British, you can go, oh, it's really quite camp type of accents, which I thought was fun, but not every again. I thought it was kind of funny. So there are lots of different British accents. Yeah, that guy, I think, but it's not him. So some of them were done by Mikey Goodman, who's actually the singer of a fairly well-known British metal band called Sikt, who were recently. He does voices as well, so he arranged for a lot of the voices, and he actually, I think, does that voice. But it's a really gruff Cockney accent, I think.
It sounded very, because I was like, this sounds so familiar.
Actually, the guy, because there's lots of musicians, a few musicians. So the guy that's your wingman in the first chapter, the Irish guy, is actually one of the guys from London Grammar. So there's lots of people doing the voices. So there's some cool voices in there, and there's one guy in the second chapter. I think his name's John Lines. Strangely, because he reads lines, and he's got the lowest British voice ever. It's good to see a wingman and he's got that. It's, I don't know how much cigars you smoked, how much fucking chew if you worked in a fucking mine or something. But if you go to chapter 4 and the guy starts talking, he's like, "Holy shit!" So I do that. There we had a lot of fun with the vocals and going a bit crazy. And it's the only part of the game which is sort of lighthearted. Everything else really quite dark and bleak, but that's sort of a lighthearted, fun bit here and there.
Awesome stuff. Clownz, have you got questions you would like to ask Thomas?
I do. So one of the things I always wanted to ask you is that as an indie developer, how big is something like Game Pass or PlayStation Plus to indie developers?
Well, it can be huge because, like I said, the Falconeer is nothing on Steam. I don't. PC gamers simply haven't heard of it. I think that's part of me really being dedicated to Xbox and they embracing it. It being a launch title and so forth. It's really seen as an Xbox title, even though it's out on other platforms as well. Game Pass is a game changer, I think, because of course you do get paid. There's 18 million people if they all played Game Pass. I don't think it's not instant wealth. So you get, but Microsoft are how do you call it? Gracious with how they deal with indie developers, and they give them the fact that they give them an opportunity to be part of that service is fantastic because there's a financial incentive. But for me, what's interesting, I've got kids, I've got to feed, fine. But what you want is people playing your game. Even if you're an asshole like me who fucks up his tutorial and makes it everything inexplicable and you have to figure it out yourself and all that shit, you still want you want to find your audience. And if you look at the other platforms, like Steam is a great example, everything is run by algorithms. So if the algorithm says, computer says no, you're not going to be shown to a lot of gamers. And you can have games that nobody plays, or a few thousand people play. And that is not finding your audience. But if you go to Game Pass, everybody can try it out. And you see thousands and thousands of people, tens of thousands, hundreds of trying out games. And some of them, they go, fuck, what's this? This is horrible. Yeah, fuck me. And some will go, fuck, what's this? Kind of interesting. So you get people sampling the games who wouldn't otherwise do it. And there is a percent, especially with something niche like an artistic or air combat game, you do find people who otherwise wouldn't have tried it go, I like this, or it's interesting, or it resonates with me, and that's fantastic. That's if you're, let's say, if you're an artist, and I do, call myself a game artist. That's all you want. You want to, people to play it and resonate, and for those very few that haven't, get an emotional connection during the playing of the game, that is the end goal. So in that sense, Game Pass is a wonderful garden for it to drop in. It's a bit intense, because everybody comes in the same, new game on Game Pass. It's like a medium-sized US city decides to play the Falconeer. Every bug we hadn't spotted, with entire QA teams trying it, got surfaced, because something that happens once in 50 times, because there was an issue where a pirate boat would come into the tutorial, people would destroy it, that's fine, but it dropped ammo, and that would ruin the ammo charging bit of the tutorial, and you get stuck. That was a 1 in 50 to 1 in 100 chance, but on Game Pass, that's several thousand people, and a substantial portion of that got really pissed and went online. A fucking tutorial, I'm stuck. Or, did a review, I can't get past the fucking prologue because nothing happened. So, so that is, Game Pass is the biggest possible stress test you can put your game through, I guess, and does only compare really to making your game free for a period. It's the same amount, it's like a instant, like I said, a medium-sized city deciding to play your game, which is great and scary as fuck at the same time.
I'm guessing it also gives you then a slight, as you mentioned before, the only downside is the financial risk of creating a game by yourself. So I'm guessing then going into something like Game Pass, that alleviates quite a lot of that risk then, because there's some kind of financial support.
You can't really talk about it, but games like Valheim that sell 4 million, I heard, in a month, 3 weeks, whatever, they make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But small games make small amounts of money. So it's a fair compensation, allows me to work, but I won't be. It's not these aren't terrific. How do you call it? It's you're not instant rich. So let's put it like
yeah.
So Microsoft doesn't pay $30, which is the retail price of the games, per game someone tries. Let's put it like that. And why would they? That's not their service. But they do provide. It does provide the financial stability. It doesn't work like someone in common says, "I get paid extra if you leave your console on." Then everybody leaves it. Sadly, not how it works. So it's a fantastic way, and they are very generous with how they deal with things, and it allows you to make another game, and that is insane in itself. So it's definitely a game changer in that sense, and it leaves you can then say, well, okay, it's a shame it wasn't picked up by the Steam and wasn't on the front page of Steam or whatever, because you're on Game Pass. Sure, it helps. Definitely.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And working with Xbox in general, then obviously being the first console platform to develop for, how has that been so far?
Well, like I said, I've worked with Sony Interactive Entertainment in London. We're also lovely people. I know there's lots of animosity, but actually
Not
people
yet,
who
don't
make
worry.
games are all usually quite familiar with each other and
Yeah.
if not friends and quite friendly. But I think Xbox is quite special due to their dedication to indie games. They have their ID at Xbox program that provides technical support for you to, make games for their hardware. They have a really open organization. It's not, you can't walk up to Phil Spencer, of course, but they are very approachable. So they will be at events. You can set up meetings. That is very much that is not the norm, I'd say. So they have a deep, and I think through Game Pass they also possibly, but I can't say anything for them, of course. But I do think the service is better because there's also small games on there or indie games. Different. There's lots of variety. So they have, and whereas another platform might not need that, they actually have an appreciation for indie games, and I think that is quite telling in what they communicate, how they support games. So I think graciously that is a fantastic platform for indie games.
How did you get in touch with Microsoft in the first place to
I just met them I met them at an industry event in San Francisco called Game Connection, and I just set up a meeting, and we had a good meeting. Let's put it like that. And they because I think two things are interesting is that I find them very tech oriented. They're very engineering oriented. So most people I've met at Microsoft have experience with developing games or affinity with it. So they sort of know what they're talking about always, and they enjoy, and they're engineers, and that's a DNA. I don't know. That sounds all really business speaky and shit, but they're very much engineering style company. So they are approachable, and they'll talk at your own level. And in this case, when I pitched it to them, they understood what flying games, air combat games does, because they've been host to the best flying games, like Flight Simulator, or even Crimson Skies, which might not be the most popular Xbox game, but it's a fucking beloved Xbox classic.
Yeah.
From their own, I think first party studio back then. So I think they sort of, I hope that they sort of, they see these things and they have a sense where, that'd be nice, that fits with Microsoft. So we had a real connection, and it's good. Yeah, it's a lovely organization. I'm a fan.
And did they collaborate on marketing as well with you, Thomas, or did you do it yourself? Or
no, I have a publisher. So Wired Production is on all the marketing, and Microsoft, they do their own thing. So that is, they market Game Pass as they should and as they see fit. And they've done some really fun things for the Falconeer.
No, most definitely. I know the Xbox Game Pass specifically, I know that's not an easy program either, or kind of quite normal to be invited to Xbox Game Pass as an independent developer all of the time. They've got a lot of indie games on the platform, but it's still a special kind of thing reserved for fewer independent games. So how was that when that kind of come to you and they said we want to put it on Xbox Game Pass?
You're honored. Yeah, it's super special. It's definitely not a given. I think people say, "Oh, this is going to be on Game Pass." I think that's not a given for every game.
Yeah.
So people can have that expectation. Every game is going to come into Game Pass, but that's certainly not how. I don't think we can expect that. And no. I think but like I said, I don't know. So who knows? But it felt special to me. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's awesome. And obviously overall, like I say, the sound in the game, because obviously I was playing it before. I've still got it on in the background there, just sitting on the menu. But I was playing it before and coming up with the RPG mechanics, and I was just kind of running through to see what kind of additionals you can put onto your Falcon and upgrade the weaponry and things like that. How fun is that to do? Just go through and sit there and think of all these new different kinds of guns and mutagens as you've got in the game, where you can kind of enhance the birds.
Well, let me be honest. Not a thing I particularly enjoy. So I enjoy making worlds, and I'll make a new city or something cool, or giant turtle. You just want to. That is fun to me. So the thing with, so I knew I wanted. So someone, when I played made the very first demos, I let people play it. So why don't you make it a walking simulator? It's so beautiful and it's such an interesting world to explore. Just throw some story in and make a quick buck. And I needed. I knew I even it. I'm glad the combat, at least to some of the people, is really enjoyable and it's quite epic in moments. And I needed that. I didn't want to make a game where you didn't have that sense of danger or urgency that have conflict that combat could add. But it's not the easiest thing to do because once you start in that, so the shooting itself might not be super complicated to make, but then the balancing of it all and making things satisfying is because once you put a gun in a game, everybody who's ever played a shooter is going to comment on it, and everybody that's ever played a shooter has commented on it, including people going, why my bullets aren't hitting my reticule, what the fuck, kind of, where you go, okay, yeah, it's a flying game, you watch the tracers and your reticle just showing where your airplane is, not where your bullets are landing, because you're turning and stuff. You can explain all that, but people have opinions on guns, so it's quite a hard choice to make. And then doing the upgrades and all the variations, it's I'd say the balancing of the Falconeer, it's decent now. So, but when it started, I didn't have enough feedback, and it didn't have the best balancing. And then you start adding things to it because you want to add content. And we did updates, and I'll get stressed if I just do a patch of bug fixes, because that's got to add something. So it's grown a little bit. And then you go, okay, so I knew when the game came out, it's okay, so I'll be fucking balancing this for months. And it'll be it's something you have to be organized for and structured. And you're supposed to have like a spreadsheet on the wall, you like a whiteboard, so this and this, the demos per second and all that. I don't do that, I just go feel it, which is the stupidest thing to do, but hey, that's how I did it. So it's the thing I did enjoy was adding the guided missiles, which I was on the fence about for a long time. And they were added for Game Pass at the same date. Guided rockets, because they are totally unbalancing the game. So that's why they're you only get a few of them, and they help you out. But they are very unbalancing because they're just so powerful. But they're so fun because they blow up everything.
Yes.
The fun bit about that is that I wanted to do that Macross barrage. I don't know. There's a name for it. It's called Itano Circus. So when you're in anime, you see all these missiles go, and then and those montages. I wanted to do just that. That is actually the only thing I wanted to add, is to have it like you've got a bird. These rockets take off and they go, and then shit goes boom. Which is, I think, I'm fairly proud on the way it looks. So if you launch the missiles, it's just fun to watch, and it's just like, I am a god of hellfire. So totally unbalancing. No AAA studio would ever do that and allow it to be just add that in there, see how happens, see what happens. Because it added it in after the storyline, but I sort of knew what I was doing. So the storyline sometimes takes a little slow to get started. Sorry. So it takes a long. Chapter 1 is actually quite boring. Then at some point you go, what the fuck? Then at some point blew up and no. And then there's like, what? A gate? And so it gets progressively cooler, but then you're 6 hours in. So having the giant rockets come and give everybody a chance to sort of breeze through some of the earlier missions was a sort of a calculated, okay, let's see if more people now finish chapter 1 and get to actually where the game goes from fantasy to science fiction. It'd be cool to see if that happens. I don't know if it's happening, but could be, hopefully.
Did you ever thought about maybe making it a multiplayer game as well with
or adding a multiplayer element in it? Because I mean, you've got the fight, you have got the dog fighting down to a T at the moment as well, and I do have fun with it.
You know what? So I'm an original and creative programmer, and that'll be the end of any compliments I'll give myself on programming. So it's 99% duct tape. Let's be honest. I have helped Stefan Banker, who's worked on Besieged, who helped with porting the game to all the platforms. Who is my, sort of conscience where I do all the game, and then he goes, okay, how we're going to do the cloud save, Thomas, or how does achievements back up when you clean your progress and stuff. So he's an organized person, so he could do that. I can't do that because I'll need to configure servers, and mostly I will need to read manuals and lots of documentation on SDKs on doing multiplayer, and I fucking hate reading manuals. So it's like, and it's not, there'll be like books to read on netcode and stuff.
Mhm.
No. But if some AAA studio is going, yeah, let's remake the Falconeer as a multiplayer game, and we'll give Thomas some cash. You can have. I'm on Twitter.
Because you can customize, you can customize your Falcon and also the one who's riding it, right? Maybe like a game as a service kind of thing.
Yeah, well, it's. I think even if so, what I've done with the Falconeer is actually a little bit too much. So the amount of assistance I've needed since it's been released, with people testing it, there's people at the publisher testing it all the time. Even then, there's people on Discord who have access to the latest version to test it out. Stuff. If you want to do that, head on to Discord. I'm always there. It's nearly too much. So I'm taking a break now. That's why I'm doing a few podcasts. But it is barely manageable. So I think adding multiplayer and then having to, if you do games as a service, you're supposed to offer service. And the service can't be one guy who wants to really make another giant dragon enemy. So you'll have to add an organization to that. Don't want to do that. So I'll at some point, game's gonna, opportunities arise. Someone will come, but I don't know.
Okay.
We will see. I think Game Pass is just a start for the game in the sense that now people are playing it in larger numbers. Some people are hating it, of course, but lots of people are sort of slowly starting to appreciate what it has to offer. We'll see where that journey ends, and if people, really desperately want the Falconeer multiplayer, and that means that I can afford to hire a slave driver, but hire someone to make that. Then it possibly can be a realistic scenario, but we're definitely not there yet, not by a long shot. So be nice in the future. We'll see.
I wanted to ask you, when it comes to thinking of achievements, was that hard for you? Did you really have to sit down and think about it?
No, Kevin, the producer at Wired Productions, really loves thinking up achievements. So he came up with a bunch, and there's quite a few. We had some fun coming up with names. Apparently, you always have to make sort of a funny name of an achievement. So there's some really logical ones. Kill this many animals and stuff. There's the ones I enjoyed most was there's one where you have to do some backtracking. So there's a particular scene in the game where you've done a really quite nuclear thing, so to speak, and then you can go back to the scene of the crime. And not many people do that, but that's an achievement. Those are the achievements I like, where if you see it in achievement links, you go, "What the fuck is that?" And you have to hunt for it. And I know, statistically only 5% of the people do it. But I like it that there's lots of, how do you call it, completionists out there that will have. I've seen on my Twitter they'll tweet me, look, 1,000 points when they've wrapped up everything. And I know you'll have to backtrack and see that I actually spent the time to change the world in places where the story said it should be changed. And if you go back, it is changed. I do like having those little puzzles where who does that, and there's even. At some point, you have to steal a ship, and in the story, that's a spoiler. They strip mine it for technology and stuff. If you afterwards you fly back, you can actually find the derelict of that ship popped into the world. So those are the things I really enjoy. Is like who I'm the only one that actually knows that. I've never heard anybody tweet about it or come on. Look, man, I found the ship you have supposed to start. I go, yeah. Never happened. But it's in there, and so I know. So one day, some kid will start playing it. Oh, look, that's that ship. How cool!
I'm gonna look for that now.
So there's that those little hints of that which like I said, there's as a AAA studio can do it because they have giant amounts of resources. But as an indie, it's you can pick your battles. But I do enjoying that. Is that if you enjoy the game, you go around. Sometimes there are hints where you go, "Did he do that? Oh fuck, he did." It's like here's someone who made the game who cares about my experience. So for me, those are little messages to the players going, yeah, fuck yeah, I did that. Enjoy it, even if it's just for a minute. So I like those.
Did you set some targets while making the game for yourself? Like expectations that you had for yourself, like okay, this has to be in, or.
Well, of course, you make targets and expectations, and I think I think when you launch a game and it's your first time, even though there are many people, I've said it in a few. A good review is you get high for a day. A bad review leaves you depressed for 4 or 5 days. It's that is if it's a user review or a player, and so you said you say I have no expectations. I'm just going to be very nuchter about it. No expectations. I'm going to be shit. Then I can't be disappointed. But secretly, you're walking and see,
sure.
And then they're going to give me a game award, and I'm going to be famous and shit. And of course, that never happens, and then nothing happens the way. But that's when you're making something, you always want it to be sky high. So I'm a very ambitious person, and you make mistakes because you made something, and you have what is called tunnel vision. You got that are going. Yes. So you'll make mistakes, and those mistakes. In today's internet culture, someone will time around a brick and throw them through your window. So that's that. I think that is. I had high expectations, but it's very hard not to have that. And then there's the ultimate sort of a Debbie Downer where the game comes out and some people hate it, and look, there's these other games which are indie darlings, and you're just okay. So it's always sure. Yeah, it's what happens, I think that's cool, but I think that is and these kinds of comments, people comment, there's such a support if you're making someone. If you're tweeting, I get people that thank you for making the game. I thought it's super interesting, or it was wonderful, or it resonated, or something, or just thank you for making the game. I really enjoyed it. Within the fucking knee deep of shit of the internet, those are actually the things I really appreciate. I think most developers, if you think, should I tweet a developer that I really enjoyed this game? Hell yeah, because they're insecure human beings that just spend 4 years making something, and they're only reading the negative reviews because that's just the human thing to do, So coming in and thank you, I really, I already completed. I got 1,000 points. I really enjoyed it. That is something that will pull you through certain games. So it's much appreciated.
Hey Thomas, and you said that sometimes you see numbers of small cities playing your game. Can you share anything about it? How many players play the game?
I can't. No, I'm not. I don't think I'm allowed to say anything
about numbers.
I don't know what because like I said, I don't read the fucking manual, so I'll be super careful here. And it's a lot of people. I don't know if that makes it. It's because the numbers in Game Pass are so ridiculous. So I have no idea if it's. I think it feels like it's done well in the numbers and the traction it's got for an indie game. So that's lovely. It's interesting. I think.
But is it, let's say, above 500,000, or maybe above 1 million, or is it something in that range?
No, it's not above 1 million. Okay, I think those numbers are for really quite big games, and it's only been out for a couple of weeks, or not 3 weeks now. So now the 4th, so we're nearly 3 weeks. So no, it's not gone ridiculous. So it's a very modest indie hit, or it's not. I don't think a hit is the right word. It's a modest niche art game, and people are appreciating it. I think that is the modest thing to say it. I did find out, I don't know if some say, but it's so super interesting that the audience, how do I say it? It seems that a large part of the audience is over 35.
Like me?
Yes. It's a statistic that came out on multiple platforms. So I think that's part because it's harkening back. It is a retro game in a sense with the air games, the air combat games. It's also quite a thinky game. I've had reviews on Steam where someone said because everything. So this game starts with half an hour of bullshit narrative Thomas thinks we'll like. Okay, yeah, okay. So it is a very talky game, and it doesn't make any sense until you're fucking halfway through it, and even then there's this lady comes up and she is like a shaman and she's talking to you and you have, what the fuck is this about? That only makes sense if you fucking finish the game. There's like 30 seconds at the end that completely explains why that is, who it is, and what she's doing, and who's lying there. What the fuck? You can piece it together yourself. It's only explained. So I think for people, if I kind of get a kick out of the fact that the audience for that is a little bit older, or I don't know, a thinking man's type of game audience, or thinking woman's type of game audience. So I thought that was a fun statistic.
Yeah, I was going to say it's always good to see those kind of statistics. Of course, we not being a developer but being content creators, we see that kind of statistic every day as well, to see kind of where people are and how old people are, and my channel's exactly the same. Like our average viewers are actually sitting around 50 to 55, which is unbeknownst to me. I don't know how we've got to that age group, but
yeah, that's
really.
Yeah.
Well, I think then you have good guests and good questions, and people will stick around. It's kind of fun to hear that there. For me, I remember 10 years ago when we started out games. Shit, will we still making games when I'm 60? Because that's like really old if you're 25. And what I'm gonna do? Gonna be the only one in the old folks' home who plays games. And now we're all gonna be Xboxing or PlayStation on. We're gonna be VR on, playing the next Final Fantasy in 2020, 2090 or whatever. How old we're gonna be? 2050? Shit. So gamers are getting older, and that is actually a good thing, I guess, because that is leading to more interesting games or more, poetic games, or an appreciated of different storylines, or getting into the depth of gameplay. It means also games don't need to explain themselves so much, which I love because I fucking hate making tutorials. But with that I mean, there is games can be more focused on being a game rather than this is the first time you've ever played this game of this type. And I think that's cool because then you can skip some of the boring parts where a game needs to introduce itself, where you got a game, we're going to be whatever, we're going to be underworld gods in a turn-based whatever. There's a preconception there that people will figure out how a game works, and we can deviate from that and things become more interesting, hopefully.
No, most definitely. I was going to ask to yourself, which was harder to kind of come up with, designing, as in coming up with the design of the game, or creating the storyline for that game, which was more difficult for you, or which was?
I did the core. I had a lot of fun with the storyline. So designing the game poses challenges where you have to, like I said, make a good tutorial. The update today was about chopping up the tutorial, so it's very top of mind. But no, you have to design ultimately also as balancing a game, doing lots of hard work, saying, okay, well, there's at some point you have to have a mission system. So a mission comes in stages. You have to make a point where, okay, so let's say if I'd added checkpoints to that, I think that used to be or still quite a tough critique for the game, which is true. There's no checkpoints. It's not very long missions. They're not 15 minutes, but can get annoying. Now the mission has stages, and I can reset the mission, and it's fine. You do a save game, and I know where you're going to start, and the game state, as it were, is fairly overzichtelijk, how do you call it? Clean and acceptable for me to test and comprehend. If you have checkpoints, it becomes permutations. So these systems can get, really quite complex. So I think I can look it up for it. But the code for just the mission manager is, I think, 30,000 lines or something. Lots of spaces. But there's a lot of code just managing those missions. And things become very, for someone like me, who doesn't have I can get really focused when something is rewarding. So I made something pretty. Let's make some more. I made something pretty. Let's make some more. And then I have to sit down and go through a spreadsheet, just figure out, fuck, I did this and this, or there's a bug. It becomes quite tedious and hard to focus. So those things are quite hard to do. So those pose a challenge, and it's not fun. So, but telling the story was quite fun. I think it was it's the first time I've tried to tell this type of story, and to even though the story is not very human level, so there's no single hero, or there is the backstory of the world is, it's a mythical family that falls apart, and each family member deals with a trauma of abandonment and anger in a certain way, and forms the archetype for that faction. So the Mancer faction are stuck in their heads, if it were, and they're trying to replicate, what the trauma that was done to them. And then there's the Imperials, who are just, fuck it, we're just going to keep on living, and they become very hardened. So in that sense, and then there's one, so that that goes back to a single family trauma that's explained in the myths you discover throughout the world. That's then in the factions. And the factions tell a story, which is actually the same story about trying to escape and deal with the consequence of the past, and being unable to because you're stuck in dogma or rituals, etc., etc. That story is, I had that quite early. It was the first time I tried to do it, but at some point I knew, okay, I have it, and then there's this lying, and then in the prologue I'm gonna fuck everything up. So I had that. So that just needs to fill it in, and then you add bits and bobs. Let's have a giant warship in there, and all the fun bits on top, as it were.
Now I have a question for you. Is based on what you've seen in the reactions from the community and what you've seen in Game Pass, do you foresee yourself making DLC for this?
I am making there is a big update coming. I'm taking a little break because I had to chill out for a little bit, but I'm starting next week. I've already shared a little bit on Twitter, or explained a little bit of what it's going to be. One is fairly clear, is that if you now go into the game and you shoot somebody, you get branded a pirate or a criminal, and there's like a police force, but there's no end to it. That's one of the things I want to add. So it's like have a pirate pathway and a pirate town to go to do pirate missions, possibly redeem yourself or something. So that's one bit that's going to be added. The other bits are a bit more vague, if you will, because I usually don't plan too much of that. I've got 2 storylines, 3 one is more a horror-ish storyline, and it's content that's intended to, not just have the main storyline, which is the focus of the game. It's an open world, but all the good quality stuff is, especially in the end of the single player storyline. So chapter 3 and 4 become much more varied and interesting in gameplay, rather, where chapter 1 is actually, Thomas just starting the game. It's actually fairly repetitive. So it's to add more of the high quality and sort of different mission objectives, a little bit of storytelling through the different places in the world. So basically just the open world narrative stuff. I I'd say if I were to listen to the community feedback on the game, I have to lock myself up and stop making games forever. Because it's supposed to be very. If you look at the Xbox reviews, it's 0s of 1 stars and 5 stars. So there'll be someone who says, there's one review that goes, this game's fantastic. I go to bed with this game. I wake up with this game, 5 stars. And next week, 1 star, garbage. So I'd say it's not everybody's game. I'd say it's like I said, to me it feels like there's been lots of critical appreciation for the game. Also not, but the outlets like Eurogamer or PC Gamer or quite a few major outlets and reviewers who've seen the artistic value of the game say, well, this is something beyond the things it might not do perfectly. It's incredibly original and unique, and that needs to be cherished. And it's like I said, for me it feels just since Game Pass initially, because it's a game people come out to. There's 2 types of players for this. So there's people who come out, will play it, and the prologue, and at the end of the prologue you die, and you get the tutorial and a bit of, and you go, what the fuck is this? And then there's this lady, she's talking gibberish. What the fuck? Trash. Terrible. 1 star. And I'll go play Destiny. Okay. And then there's other people. What the fuck? They have exactly the same. I said, what the fuck is this? And there are pictures. The world looks strange. Okay. Let's see what's got to offer. That's interesting. So that's the other people that end up with doing 4 or 5 star reviews going, it's pretty cool, or it's a fun game, or it's different. I think that's cool. And what happens is just, once that small city, comes in and plays your game, the first people that will review it are people that play it for half an hour, go, fuck, terrible, 1 star. And then people who spend 8 or 12 hours playing the game, discovering what it's about, doing the deep dives, and they'll review it weeks later. So it's the community response has been interesting, at the least. We had some incidents with some racist comments and stuff like that. On the whole, I'd say it's a different type of game, and it's getting quite a lot of appreciation. New content will be made because I want to make it. So that is, I don't need. Luckily for you all there, I don't need you to make the game. I need you to play it, or at least some of you. Be better. Audience of 1 is terribly
all of
lonely.
You. Everyone.
No, I don't need everybody. I don't think it's that type of game. Let's be realistic. It's also, interesting if you talk to. I sometimes respond to YouTubers or people streaming. They go, I don't. I say, well, first of all, it's a game made by one guy, and it's quite a personal, artsy game. And you go, what? And lots of people have no idea what type of game it is. So that's one of the things I want to do. Have a sit with the publisher. Well, yeah, it's now going on. Actually, it's an epic fantasy combat, but maybe the description of the game should be more descriptive. From this solo developed, artistic, whatever, and it's got huge explosions and giant dragons. But I don't know. In the end, we'll see. I'm making some content for it, and then some more things are happening which I can't mention. And then some more things are happening, and then after that, we'll see. And if there's, people want more, I'll make more. I'll promise that.
Do we get Dutch subtitles, Thomas?
Why?
Because I always like when it's a narrative-driven game. I would really like to read it in Dutch, and especially when you are Dutch and you have tons of hopefully Dutch people that play it. They want to follow the story like it's maybe, like you say, maybe a complicated story or whatever.
I know people. So localization is, even though I'm Dutch, but I wrote it in, localization is quite an expensive thing. There's 18,000 words in the Falconeer, so it's not with all the hidden stuff and the stuff you can find. There's quite a lot of content that's being vocalized.
Mm-hmm.
That is a lot of words to localize. So an investment is a major investment to localize to Dutch. Because then every time I make an update or add content, we need to hire someone to check all the text in. There's now 12 languages or 13.
Yes, I saw. Yeah.
So it's a very business-wise thing to say, well, okay, and then the Netherlands, I'm sorry, there's only 20 million of you, and there's probably only 50,000 or 10,000 people, gamers, that would enjoy the Falconeer. If I wish, actually, because that is a really nice sales number, but that is the max it could ever do in the Netherlands. So that is definitely a factor, and it goes for other languages where people are saying, "Oh, please give me Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, or Latin American Spanish, or Turkish even." Doesn't always make sense to, it's not a matter of just. And they say, well, we can do it for free, but that means if I add that language, then I have to do it every update, and eventually you're gonna have to pay someone, and let the community do it. There's been lots of negativity about having unpaid community workers. So I definitely don't. I've been treated shit in my life as a freelance. As someone working for other people. Don't want to treat people that way as well. So it's a bit about making it manageable. On top of that, when I see Dutch trans subtitles, it makes me feel kind of stupid. Wel, en toen vloog de draak tegen de tovenaar en kwam vuurbal. Well, it's anything.
It doesn't sound good. I agree with you there. Yeah.
Dutch language in itself is sort of a little bit kneuterig sometimes, especially when it comes to translating fantasy or science fiction. Might be just me. So that is the other thing where I said, fuck it, we'll just do it in English. And it's in English, French, Spanish, Polish, Russian,
Korean, Japan, I think.
Korean, Japanese, Chinese, simplified Chinese, Italian.
Yeah, but fair enough.
And Polish. So there's quite a few languages. People to satisfy. They did ask me, and I did say, well, so sorry.
It's okay though. And Thomas, with the experience that you have now with Game Pass, if you make a second game, would you release it in Game Pass again? And would you go for some kind of exclusivity again? Because is the game fully exclusive or is it timed exclusive?
I don't know. So I can't answer any exclusivity because don't know. They gave me a paper to sign. I don't know what it says because I never read the fucking manual. So no comment. Would I do it again? Hell yeah. I think the way Microsoft embraced the game, allowed it to be a launch title, allowed it to be on Game Pass. Those are that is a say what you will. That is a
achievement on itself.
That is an achievement on itself for a game by yourself. That is there's not many games solo developed. I don't think there's another solo developed next generation console launch title that got a box released. I don't think even Hyper Light Drifter or any of the crazy indie successes ever did. So it's in itself that's a huge achievement. And if they offer that again, fuck yeah. Definitely. So it would be idiotic of me not to appreciate the opportunities given. So definitely.
Cool.
I will make another game. You can bet your ass without any tutorials.
What kind of
Dutch subtitles?
And Dutch subtitles. If you were to make another game, then obviously with learning from the Falconeer, have you got any kind of thoughts in mind already as to what kind of game you want to create in the future?
Well, I like trains very much, like steam iron battleship trains with guns on them. I do like that. I do think that might work with the Falconeer as a sequel. Guys on birds and then giant trains. I don't know. Trains. Excellent. Just combine every epic thing you can think of and it just becomes better. So I don't know if the game will warrant a sequel. We'll have to see, in 6 months, like you said, if 1 million people play it on Game Pass, holy shit. Then you can go out and say, well, let's make a sequel. I'd like to be a little bit more ambitious than and have some people help, or actually do that, singular heroic story arc where you have people you know, people you meet, people you get attached to, which the game now doesn't. I think that'd be interesting. Having done this, to then jump into that. Also thinking about a space game with trash. And have to rescue plants. I don't know. There's a couple of ideas going, and Mike.
I like that. I like that. That sounds fun.
Yeah, I did. I do. I think maybe I made something too artistic. Maybe if I make it in space, and then I can make some mechanics nobody ever played, so there's no comparison. So they can't say it's shit because they've never played anything like it. That'd be fun. And I do like the Expanse. So one of the things that are intriguing is the Newtonian combat in the Expanse, the TV series on Amazon. So that is, I'll look at that and go, what can I do with that? So and that'll need to sit for a year before, especially the Falconeer. No, not birds pulling trains, birds escorting trains. Like the ultimate escort mission. It'll first have to run down the Falconeer. Then I need to take a small rest. Even though, I'm already getting bored from one day working in the garden. Even though it's fun, but I'm not the sitting down type, and we can't go on holiday. Probably still, we're all fucking stuck. So best make another game. So I do like the idea of in space, and there's a movie about some guy that rescues the last plant. Is Silent Running or something? One of those classic 80s sci-fi movie. I'll pick an idea like that and go, okay, but then differently.
Of course.
I do like things in space as well. I might one day make a walking simulator. I don't know.
That's not a bad idea. A walk-in simulator on trains.
Walking simulator. Well, no, I want the trains to have guns and then giant. There's a book by China Miéville called Train World or something. Train Sea, Rail Sea. Go read it. It's really good. I think more sci-fi, fantasies mashup. And it's a world covered in train tracks. That's such an evocative image. Trains going all over the horizon. It's just like a desert of abandoned train tracks, and then the steam trains. That's an inspiring visual. So trains. I just need to think on that. What to do and what to make it different.
It certainly sounds very different.
Thomas the Train.
Thomas the Train engine.
Fit your name also.
Yeah. But I feel the money coming in already.
Exactly.
Awesome stuff. And have you got, obviously, we've touched on this before, but obviously looking at things like DLC, have you got any kind of ideas potentially in future DLC for larger bosses that might take a little bit of time to kind of take down?
Or trains? Oh no,
large trains. Obviously, you've got the airships, and obviously you've created that awesome Turtle Island. And
goes into Chapter 2. I'd like to do something larger. Yeah, those are nice.
Even like you mentioned, kind of larger dragons that might be covered in armor and things like that, or even a much larger falcon, like an alpha.
Might also be interesting, like an airship. Yeah. So I might. It depends on
a bit like a Falcon Star Destroyer, but instead of just sends out loads of little falcons.
If you play some of the sequences because there's all these colored, some of the aesthetic of the game, and especially when the big airships come out of the clouds, it's quite Star Wars-ish, especially when you go Pewdiepie. Giant bosses. No, I'm making a giant town on the back of or a small town on the back of a giant turtle, which could technically be a boss as well. I do know people like giant bosses. This is true, but I'm gonna think on that. That's actually quite a good idea, and I might steal it. More giant bosses.
That's not. I wouldn't say steal it. Take it. Have it.
You can steal it if you get Dutch subtitles. Then it's okay.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Have any of you guys got any further questions before we let Thomas go and enjoy and think on this?
Well, I am going to tell you that I'm going to go ahead and look up all the achievements now and try to get every single one. I'm going to try to find that ship that you talked about that's left there. And I mean, I've just thrown this out there, and this would just be a funny achievement in the future if you ever decide to do it. I don't know if you've done it yet, but I made this recommendation to the Pigeon Simulator. Since you're a big bird, if you ever pooped on something, get an achievement for pooping. Yes.
Yeah, I think what my favorite review on Steam is, it's a positive review. It said, got a giant bird, can't take giant shit. Completely unplayable. Well, you can drop bombs, technically. I thought
X.
I did that. I might. Let's put it
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. I will do everything.
Just one of them hidden achievements that you just wouldn't think of, because they're always the best.
But I think deep it down.
Yes.
So. Bombs away. I see someone mentioned the Dragon Riders of Pern. There is actually a DLC now where you can ride a dragon, a small one, a drake. Yes. And I do like the Dragon Riders of Pern. It's because it's actually some of the lore there's some inspiration in there where fantasy becomes science fiction. So I do like that particular reference.
I got a final question from my side. It's about the development kits, and that how was that working on it, and do you see already improvements on the development kits?
I've not been on the optimizing side since release, so we did with Stefan and Unity got HDR to work a week or 10 days after release. Mm-hmm. So I've not been focused on the new features that's come out with the kits. But because I use Unity 3D, there's always a little, two-step where Unity needs to implement it before I can use it or stuff. Let's be honest, the Falconeer is not a graphically intense. It does some things that tax the old generation quite hard. Some of the procedural stuff, some of the maths I use are quite heavy on the Xbox One. And you will see quite a substantial visual step back from the Series X to Xbox One. Less so with the One X, but still the One X is quite a powerful system. It's comparable to a Series S. I don't know. Series S has more modern architecture, so it does beef it up a little bit. But then One X has actually more beefy memory and stuff. So it's and the Series X itself is such a ridiculous device.
In a good way.
Oh yeah, in the best. There's so much power there. I'm pretty sure. As a launch title, you're only at like 40% efficiency of what you can use. Well, I think one of the things that was variable rate shading is not something I'm using, which will add another 20% performance. If and when it's how to call it, usable through Unity, but it's a small feature, but it will make like now 120 FPS, 1800p might become 120 FPS 4K, and then become default. So you don't need to toggle to 120. I'll make the game 120 for everybody. So there are things that will happen. Like I said, at this time, I think I've mostly been busy listening, balancing, fixing issues, adding the little bits of content that fill out the world. That there's the Kraken update we did in December that has direct diving. So there's a few missions in the world which are radically different from the storyline, where you actually see little animations of stuff you find underwater. I've just been busy doing that. So at the moment, I don't need the extra power. And for something like ray tracing to come in and be added, I have thought about it because it is something you can add yourself, and it would add a lot. But at the moment, it doesn't detract as much in the Falconeer because it's how do you call it? It's a stylized visual as well. So ray tracing to do shadows and reflections would be fantastic, actually, on the water. But it's a huge investment. So at the moment, I rather make content and fill out the game and deal with some of the people say, well, it's fairly empty because it's not Valhalla or an open world with 1,000 developers making content. But I do, that sort of stuff does sting. So I'll making extra content to me feels more important than squeezing now every cent out of the latest updates for the Series X.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say about the dev kits is that they're fucking sexy. So I personally I have a service book. And I don't know. You're not allowed to show pictures of the dev kit, but it's a nice looking bit of kit. I like Microsoft hardware at the moment. So just visually and some of the materials they use, quite nice, very well engineered.
Awesome stuff. How did you, obviously, speaking about the development of additional content, obviously that, and no doubt you can't wait for the day when kind of the optimization and a few of the niggly bits are done so you can get back to creating content, which is the thing that you love most. So in terms of the world, the one thing that I love as well specifically is kind of more of I don't know whether it is fully dynamic, but or whether or not semi-dynamic, but the weather and the storms that generate and things like that around the world, they're awesome, of course. And when you need them the most, they seem to appear to regenerate your weapons and things like that. Coming up with that kind of mechanic where, okay, like we have weapons, but you can run out, and the only way to really regenerate them is to go back and find these storm clouds and generate everything back up again. And was that something that was quite easy to develop initially, or was?
Well, it's a Bob Ross moment. So it's those are happy little accidents. I have some plan in place, but usually I'll do lots of iterations, just fucking about. I will tweak, and I've spent years tweaking I just love it. So I just go, shall I add a purple lighting? A purple. You have a golden hour during the day when everything goes golden in the game. Yes. The sunrise. Yes. So we have a purple moment. You can actually, with some of if you go to certain spaces at certain times, have strange color combinations because the north side of the world, I think, is more reddish, and the bottom side is more green. I don't think anybody's noticed that, but I do love. If you go south of the mall, the colors in the world subtly change to a different color palette than if you go north. I can fiddle with that for hours, man. It's not difficult. It's just fun. Just I have clouds. Okay, I have clouds. It's the first thing I need to make lightning. Fuck yeah. Let's have some thunder in there. So these are things are just fun to do. Make a volcano, of course. Have volcanic lightning, of course. Then let's have some green lightning that's in the world somewhere as well to be found. So you can have that stuff is just fun and enjoyable to make.
And the volcano that you enjoyed making is, can you make that kind of erupt or go off at random times, or?
Well, it's always erupting. It's farting out fireballs that can actually hit you or enemies if you do combat in that place. And that's not that is actually because that's why I say duct tape. So you have the volcano, it's fun, there's some smoke and stuff, and there's red lightning around it. And then there's a turret that shoots off fireballs, and then the turret is invisible and it's stuck in the middle of the caldera. And it's literally a turret that's randomly go. So that's how I make games. How do I do it? I'll stick a turret in the volcano, and then I'll make a little fireball-y projectile. Done. Yeah, that's a good hour of work.
Awesome stuff. Unless anybody's got any further, I'm going to wrap up the show for today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Thomas. Fascinating to hear kind of your thoughts behind not only a game, how you come up with a game in the first place, the way your mind works to a point. I know the mind of a creator is always a wonderful thing to kind of dive into. But but also kind of your knowledge behind kind of how other things work, kind of how the industry works a little bit better as well, because that's always fascinating to hear. But absolute pleasure to have you on today. And
it's been a pleasure. Been very enjoyable. We had a good laugh. That's always good.
Yeah, it's very good indeed.
Thomas.
And it's great to have another, well, for the first time ever, have a Dutch developer on the show as well.
There's not a lot of Xbox developers that are Dutch. We've got some PlayStation-y, but I don't know why.
Yeah. I mean, there's literally, well, there was Guerrilla Games, and for PlayStation, they're Dutch, a Dutch group. But other than that, there is no independent developers. I haven't come across many, if any.
Well, Lake, which has been announced for, I think, exclusivity, wasn't part of the 50 game they showed that will come to the next gen. They had this, I don't know what I think were exclusive or timed exclusive deals. So Lake is a Dutch game. What's in there? And there was another Dutch one. There's a few Dutch, and Microsoft is doing very well. So definitely on the right foot this cycle.
Yeah.
So I expect lots more Dutch developer or any sort of developers to try and get in there much more than they did previous cycle. So
You set a good example, Thomas. So if you give a good example, many will follow, mate. So let's see.
Let's hope.
Let's hope. Well, thank you very much for coming today, and we will do our outros. If Thomas, I always do this for every other guest. For yourself, if you can let people know where they can find yourself, information about the Falconeer, and any social tags you have.
Okay, I'm at Falconeer Dev on Twitter. There's a Discord. It's got vanity invites, so just Google the Falconeer Discord, and that will invite you. Always there. The game's on Xbox, Game Pass, Steam, GOG. I think for most people on this show, they want to just open up Game Pass and play it. That's me. Yeah, that's it. Actually,
Awesome
I just do
stuff.
Twitter and Discord. I don't think I'm Facebook. I am also.
Yeah, we've all just kind of.
Yeah, my mom's on Facebook. What the fuck?
Oh, happy days. And let's outros for our panel members today then. That's Forza Erwin first and foremost.
Yeah, so thanks for coming on the show again, Thomas. Really enjoyed. Thanks again for taking your time this evening. So it was great seeing your how your brain works a little bit. So very interesting and very cool to see. People can find me on Twitter on Forza Erwin. The same for Xbox Live. People can find me on Forza Erwin. The same on Twitch. And just add me and let's have a good chat.
Awesome stuff. And last but not least, our man from Four Guys with Quarters, Italian Clownz, if you take it out.
All right, yeah. Well, first of all, Thomas, thank you for hanging out with us today. It was a pleasure talking to you and seeing your passion and energy for what you do. And I look forward to all your future content as well. I'm excited for it. In the bird poo achievement, I will be looking for that one day. So I'll be looking for that one day. But everyone can find me at 4GW Podcast on Twitter or Italian Clownz on Twitter and Four Guys with Quarters on Thursdays.
Awesome stuff. And thank you again to everybody who come out in the chat today as well. Showed obviously your love and support, not only to us, but to Thomas as well, coming on the show today. Absolutely awesome chat, a lot of cool things, and obviously a lot of nice references for Thomas to look at as well whilst he's looking there. So brilliant stuff. Thank you again to everybody, and we will see you again next week.
Bye, guys. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Do it.